on in, Clark County. This is Rob Anderson with Reform Clark County. And this week on Reformcast, we are going to be looking at the county council meeting where Sue Marshall's anti-ICE resolution continued to be baked out, worked out, and a lot of people were not happy with it. And we had some interesting surprises as well that I'll share with you. Also, we'll take a look up north again to Ridgefield School District and just see how that story about the Ridgefield School District's failure to protect students is continuing to unfold and roll out. And the reaction is very, let's just put it this way, a lot of parents are not happy with how the school district has handled that situation. But before we get started, hit that like, the share, the subscribe, wake the neighbors, tell your friends about Reformcast, and make sure that you get notified so that you see all the latest episodes of what's going on in your backyard in Clark County. So as you know, last week, Sue Marshall once again brought her anti-ICE resolution back to the table for wordsmithing. And, she brought it originally. She kind of backed away and said, well, it wasn't really about immigration. It's about immigration. That's what she called it. That's what they put on the agenda. And here we are. And I call it the anti-ICE resolution because that's really what it is. In fact, they want a little bit more than anti-ICE. They want, the left side wants anti-FBI. They want, I think if they were honest, they would really want all law enforcement. But it's right now being couched as just ICE. And so they showed up again, but not as many. And to their surprise, the room was mostly filled, I'd say 2/3 filled with people that were against this anti-ICE resolution. I was one of those. And I know that they were caught off guard to some degree, but they still were pretty upset about it. Here's just one example.
Hi, I'm here to speak about Agenda Item 4.2, the draft resolution clarifying Clark County's jurisdictional authority and council statement on immigration enforcement activity in Clark County. I am not here to play respectability politics with you while you've taken months to pine over what equates to a strongly worded email calling it a statement about the secret police tearing communities apart and Clark County Sheriff's Office colluding directly with them. What you are doing is nothing than lip service. It is seen directly through the actions of Clark County Sheriff's Department. On February 9th, 2 days ago, 3 women were observing a vehicle, and the person associated with that vehicle was ICE, the person and the vehicle. They never left their vehicles. I know, because I'm one of them. At least 4 Clark County Sheriff's Department cars rolled through, 2 more mobile. They tried to threaten us with felony stalking for never leaving our vehicles. In the same county, I was held hostage by a white supremacist at gunpoint and almost lost my life. He got hit with less charges than what Clark County Sheriff's was trying to hit us with. 10 minutes, I was held out in a public street by a white supremacist in Clark County. Inaction is what this is. It makes you directly complicit in violence and murders. It makes you directly complicit in the intimidation of people like me that weren't doing anything wrong. Stop negotiating with fascists and do something.
So one of the big surprises is that we had an Antifa sighting. Now, here in the Northwest, we're very familiar with, sightings of things that we're told that don't exist, Bigfoot sightings. And in a way, we had an Antifa sighting. And even though that we're being told that Antifa doesn't exist, well, it did in the Clark County room, and there were several people that seemed to be down for the struggle. And but right there we had Antifa, Portland Antifa, which I did get a little bit of backlash of people saying, oh, these weren't Portland organizers. They're just local Vancouver folks. And I think maybe most of them were, but there's definitely Portland-style organizers on the ground in Clark County on this issue, and we saw it up close and personal. And there was other little signatures of that from the messages and the style and the little verbal kind of threats to others, intimidation tactics. So it's alive and well, and we have a sighting in Clark County. And what this really goes to show is that Antifa and indivisible Greater Vancouver are clearly working together. There is some sort of either loose or tight collaboration that's going on, because wherever one is, one seems to be there as well. And the truth is that when it comes to indivisible, it's really just a big get out the vote effort. You have to remember that the No Kings protests that were sponsored, created, marketed, organized by Indivisible was really just a get out the vote effort by the far socialist wing of the Democrat Party. And so it worked so well, apparently, in last October, that they just decided, let's keep the party going. And so this is really what we're seeing with the anti-ICE. They've just switched it from No Kings to now it's ICE, no ICE. But if you kind of go back, you see that this goes back from, 2020 with BLM and Antifa. Then it morphed to trans Antifa. Then it morphed to, Free Palestine. Remember that? I mean, I know that sometimes it's easy to forget all these kind of morphs and these levels and changes, but we see how time and time again, it's similar people, similar tactics, and now it's just morphed to No Kings and then now no ICE. But here we are, and it's just a big get out the vote effort. And that's why it was so important that we filled, I'd say, 2/3 of the room with people that said, no, we're not going to be in support of this anti-ICE resolution. And in particular, I think the side note or the underlying message of that is that we're also not going to just give up this ground to Indivisible and Antifa style organizers. We're not going to do it. And they will resort to intimidation. They'll resort to all kinds of things. And we saw a little bit of that unfold, a little milder verbally from the last one, where Sue Marshall had to interrupt at least a half a dozen times. This time, she seemed to kind of not have to do that. One was 2/3 of the room of people were calm, cool, collected. We're not given any kind of outbursts or disruptive in any form. Now, there was a couple of instances, couple of surprises, but it was really no surprise. And those were all on the pro anti-ICE side. And so here's just one example of where a person decided to, let's just say, it was kind of a surprising way to register protest to what the council was doing, which was they have been watering down this resolution. And to some of that, I applaud. Some of the language I applaud, like, for example, supporting the right to protest and the county staying in its lane and saying it doesn't have any jurisdiction. And the other side that wanted denouncement, that looked at the city of Vancouver's resolution and wanted more, wanted the FBI, wanted to denounce all the other kind of agencies, they were getting a little hot under the collar. And it kind of boiled over really with this comment where they decided to get a little more, well, it was just surprising.
It works. Hey, I'm Thea Marie. I am a homeowner here in Clark County. So there's that. I know that's important to some people that we own property, right? Maybe it makes our voice heard a little more. I don't think it should. I was one of 3 women detained the other day by Clark County Sheriff. It was 7 vehicles. We were falsely detained. We were accused of committing crimes. None of us were cited, but we were threatened with felony stalking charges if we were seen near ICE again. That agent was sitting there for no more than 120 seconds before 7 cars rolled up, quick, hopped out of their vehicles, surrounded me, and demanded identification. This is what I was giving. It reminds me of your statement because it's a lot of words and it doesn't really mean anything to me. This is what I think about Clark County Sheriff, and this is what I think about your statement.
That's gross, man.
That's what we want to represent.
Yeah, that's gross, man. Greg Timsey,
Garbage down.
Yeah,
You threw
he
garbage on
left
the floor.
he left garbage.
So if you didn't catch that, this person printed out the resolution on a scroll, which I thought was a scroll at the time, but it turned out to be a roll, and then proceeded to take that resolution and stick it down their pants and simulate, something that you do after you go to the bathroom, and then threw it onto the ground. And that was surprising. Of all my years of being in Clark County Council meeting, I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen it tolerated as well. Typically, when someone steps out of line, gets a little rambunctious, gets a little unruly, gets out of line, Sue Marshall is quick to, step in. And for some reason, throughout the whole meeting, she seemed to be sitting on her hands and didn't say anything when this person, really kind of desecrated, right in front of their eyes what was going on in the whole process, making a mockery of it. So if that wasn't weird enough, it got a little weirder in a different way, because right after that, Greg Kimsey stepped up to the microphone. You're thinking, Rob, isn't that our auditor? Isn't that our nonpartisan, supposed to be, just about number crunching and auditing? That's not a political position. But yet the auditor, our Clark County auditor for about 30 years, stepped up to the mic to show support for Sue Marshall's anti-ICE resolution. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Greg Kimsey.
Thank you, Michelle.
Some garbage down here.
Get the debris out first.
Not my job. But
Okay, please, audience, be quiet. Let's start the clock over.
thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, councilors. For the record, my name is Greg Kimsey. I'm a resident of Clark County. I am speaking today in support of the resolution regarding immigration enforcement activity in Clark County. We are a nation of laws, and those laws must be enforced. However, the enforcement should be conducted in a humane manner and in compliance with the Constitution. Law enforcement officers must carry out their duties in a transparent and accountable manner. Peacefully assembling to express dissent should be encouraged. However, citizens should not interfere with or harass law enforcement officers. Thank you for bringing this resolution forward. I encourage you to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So did he sound like the auditor, or did he sound like maybe like a politician, a partisan politician who wanted to, make a statement, put his nose in the middle of this Sue Marshall's anti-ICE resolution, and sounded very politician-like, where he kind of talked out of both sides. But what was also kind of surprising about this is, aren't we in the middle of counting ballots? Yes. So in the middle of counting ballots from the special election, which results have not finalized, Greg Kimsey decided to come down and give his 2 cents into this issue and weigh in. So what does this have to do with each other? Well, right after the whole using the resolution to wipe, Greg Kimsey came up to the microphone right afterwards, and people were pretty disgusted and were like, hey, someone should do something about this. To which Greg Kimsey replied with,
Not my job. Not my job.
So, not my job, Kimsey. I guess that's what you get after 30 years of being in public service. You have risen above the little people, the little jobs, the little tasks that might be really just beneath you, and you've just come to a place where...
Not my job.
So another little surprise of the meeting is that one of the anti-ICE resolution, even though they were kind of against that resolution because it's not strong enough, but they were there because they wanted something stronger, and after the comments, he got pretty heated during his comments, and then he turned around and proceeded to shove, push, slightly punch, not quite sure how to qualify that, but definitely was unwelcomed, and tried to instigate something with one of our supporters that came and supported against this anti-ICE resolution.
Ending no FBI in Camp Bonneville.
Alex Luna.
I'll get it up.
So let's just kind of review a little bit. So a couple weeks before this meeting, when the room was filled with mostly, pro anti-ICE people, there's about a half a dozen times Sue Marshall had to step in and do something like this.
Okay, please, that's not helpful.
So when this guy shoved, and it was pretty obvious what happened from from afterwards. What did Sue Marshall do about this? I'm sure she took action or said something. Oh wait, yeah, she didn't. She didn't say anything. Well, what about when the butt wiper came up and did that little stunt? Oh no, nothing. She didn't. She didn't. It seemed to be that she just was okay with this new decorum of the Clark County Council, of these really pretty disgusting stunts, from a little bit of altercations, all of it. She was quiet, really, about it, and had very little to say. Now, like I said, part of it is because the room was filled with pretty good-natured people, but the only time that she had to really kind of say anything was at the very end, when one of the anti-ICE, not the resolution, but just anti-ICE person was walking away. They swore and cussed and, let their displeasure out.
Okay. There was never going to be action today. We were just going over this to see what we could agree to. So if you have anything to say, go out in the hall and say it. Open public comment is over.
So in the end, Councilors Fuentes and Young and Marshall and Little debated on the wordsmithing, left most of it intact, but just kind of went over a few words here and there. Matt Little kind of worked to, I think, kind of water it down a little bit further, which really kind of drove some on the other side really crazy. Didn't like that at all. Of course, Councilor Belcott was a strong no. And in special recognition, I want to point out, and that is of Glenn Young, for on one hand was saying we don't want to fund, we don't want any of the county resources to go towards federal law enforcement of this kind.
Go ahead.
Council Little is done. I do have one suggestion as well. I would prefer to add into here. I thought it was in there originally, but I guess it didn't land in this draft here. But that county resources are not to be used for federal immigration purposes.
So you would like to add that?
Yes.
So I've got a question for Glenn Young. So are you saying that you wouldn't support federal law enforcement who is going after known murderers or rapists or really violent crimes? So if they've committed a violent crime, but if it's a federal charge and if federal agents are involved, let it go, according to Glenn Young. He doesn't want county resources. He wants to, in a way, and when you withhold resources, you are impeding to some degree. Now, granted, it's a lighter version of it, but it's impeding federal law enforcement. And it appears that Glenn Young is okay with that. And also the whole issue of they don't want unidentified officers. So I guess Glenn Young now is against undercover work.
And maybe we word it such that we say that law enforcement properly identify themselves or something to that degree. But I think that this is a large issue, and I do agree that they should be. There should be a way that people, when they see enforcement activities taking place, that it's clear who is there, and that they are legal law enforcement, whether we agree with them or not. I think that is important. Otherwise, you don't know if it's just a van full of people that are literally human trafficking or something of that nature. And I think it should be in there that we share a value that law enforcement properly identify themselves.
Because he wants every law enforcement to have a badge, a number, and a uniform. It's just, I can't keep track of all of his inconsistencies. And if you follow and track this on a spreadsheet, it would just kind of blow up. You wouldn't be able to keep track of it all. There'd be too much red ink. And so Glenn Young is all over the place. So Sue Marshall's anti-ICE resolution is going forward. It's been worksmith. I think they still got to tinker around a little bit with it, but she's ticked off. I think this has been a complete loser for Sue Marshall, who could be in a re-election run this year, where she has ticked off the conservatives or the Republicans, the people on the right, and she's she's ticked off the people on the left as well, the hardcore leftists who wanted a strong anti-ICE resolution. And I have no doubt that if she was not a county councilor, she would be down for the cause. That she would be. She lets it slip a little bit. She's the one who brought this forward. But in the end, she also knows if she's planning to run for re-election, this could be trouble for her. And so this isn't quite over, but it's almost over. The resolution will just need a little more tinkering. It's going to come forward. So we'll watch as that completes and comes forward to the council as a resolution. But we've learned a lot. We've had some fun little surprises here. We've seen like a Bigfoot sighting. We've seen Antifa show up. And yes, Portland Antifa, Portland organizers are collaborating either loosely or formally working with Indivisible, and they are on the march here in Clark County. And it's important that people who don't want socialism, who don't want these kind of tactics, who recognize that it's just a get out the vote effort on the socialist Democrat side, then things might be interesting this year. So on the last Reformcast, I shared with you the story about Ridgefield School District, because I'm sure you catch every episode of Reformcast. And on that episode, I shared how the Ridgefield School District really had failed to protect students on multiple levels. And in the first part of the story really is about the cheer coach that was left unchecked, that, this kind of behavior wasn't seriously addressed. In fact, one of the examples of this is in February of 2024, a complaint was filed by a student and detailed clearly inappropriate behavior by the coach. In fact, one instance of it was where the coach told the student that you are effing useless, but didn't say effing, said the other word. And other kind of behavior that should have just set off significant alarm bells, but didn't. In fact, there wasn't significant effort, as in to correct this, until June of 2025. And they had other instances and did little to nothing about it. And people on Facebook and other kind of comments have been surprised. Some have jumped in with statements of, yeah, we experienced something like that as well. So, but now the other shoe is dropping on this story, and that is on the public records request side. So the public records request that kind of sparked accountability also sparked another issue, and that is that when the district released these records to the public, so a public records officer only has really a couple of major responsibilities. One, collect the records. Two, release the records redacted, or making sure that they're not releasing student or other improper information. And this didn't happen. They failed on maybe both sides of those duties. And so they released and outed 9 students, first and last names of 9 students. And the district lied about it and said, oh, it was only 2 documents, only 1 name, when that was clearly not the case. And I need to correct something from the last episode. I think I misspoke. And when I make a mistake, I'll say it. I made a mistake, and I said that Paula McCoy, the public records officer, made $174,000. I was wrong, and I want to correct that. It's not $174,000. It's $185,000 or somewhere right around there. So I apologize. According to the fiscalwa.gov site, in 2025, I was looking at old numbers. That was 2024's pay. And who knows, maybe it's a little bit more. Turns out, according to the site, the public records officer, Paula McCoy, is the 3rd highest paid administrator, according to the site, in Ridgefield School District. Now, I did notice that at the first of the year that Paula McCoy is not the public records officer anymore. I don't know if that's related to this story, this situation, but there's someone else now who is the public records officer. Who knows? Maybe she got promoted. Maybe something else happened. I don't know. So one other little tidbit of this is on December 18th, I sent the Ridgefield School District an email and a certified letter, December 18th, stating that I had evidence that they did not release all of the records. Yes, they were withholding some of the records because I have evidence that there's records pertaining to informal or formal complaints against Angela Campbell, who was the cheer coach at the time. And they have a state law obligation to release all of those records. They can redact some if there's information on there that needs to be redacted, but they have to release it. And I let them know on December 18th, and I haven't gotten even a reply. They ignored it. So I'll be pursuing that a little bit further and keep you posted. So that's this episode of Reformcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it informed you. I hope that that you hit the like, the share, the subscribe buttons, because make sure you stay connected so you can stay informed, be engaged, and remember, you are the catalyst to reform. See you next time.